It's what you do with your teeth, it's where you put your tongue. It's the shape of your lips, let's make it fun. Phonic All Stars. Put your tongue. Phonic All Stars. Phonic All Stars. Shape your lips. Let's shake our hips. Phonic All Stars.
It's more than ABC.
Phonic All Stars.
1, 2, 3.
Phonic All Stars. Let's go. Jump in the car.
Alright, this is the module for Phonic All-Star Fun, and this is part of the Phonic All-Star program. Now, some children may particularly struggle to learn the actual letter grapheme. Some children, they'll just take a visual code of it, they'll look at the symbol, they'll go take a photo, it'll get imported into the back of their brain, and they're all good. Some children, it doesn't work like that. They may have really significant challenges in actually burning in that visual image, and they may learn it today and then tomorrow it's wiped clean again, and then they learn it today and it's wiped clean, and this might be for different reasons. Some may have severe intellectual disability or cognitive difficulties, developmental delay. So these might be children, for example, who have Down syndrome, Prada Willi, global developmental delay, lots and lots of different conditions. So I think the list does just continue. However, it can be really frustrating to be those children learning, and it also can be frustrating for the therapist and the parent to see the effort that you've put in wasted and gone the next day and being forgotten. So this video is created for those children as a way to give you guys some ideas of how to bridge that gap for these kids. So we're at the point where now we're going to focus in on the actual Phonic All-Star sounds and their graphemes, because that's the target that we're doing through the program, but this also can be used for their sight words and other aspects of their learning as well. But we're going to just focus in on the letters, because literacy is just as important for these children to learn, and they need to also pass through those stages of phonological awareness, phonetic reading, because these are really critical milestones in children's progress towards literacy capabilities. So this is how we do it at the clinic. What we do is really start to get into physical activities, getting into experiencing it, getting the children to actually physically do things with their hands, to go through the working out the shape themselves and how this is to be done, okay? Because sometimes just the imprint of a visual image is just not enough, or being told how to do it through the auditory and listening mechanism, just not enough. So that sometimes these kids have to actually go through doing something to actually help them to load in this, like a movement memory and an experiential memory and a visual file and an auditory file and a tactile touching file. So it's actually the integration of all these modalities coming together that deepens and deepens and embeds and deepens these memories into their brain, and then gives more hookability, more stickability, so that they're not forgotten tomorrow. Okay, does it take time? Is it hard work? Is it effortful? Yes, it takes effort. This stuff takes effort, but also teaching them hour on hour on hour, the other method where they go for years having learning support, having teaching, having all this occur, and it doesn't stick, also takes effort when the child isn't retaining the information. So I've sometimes suggested that families go through and do this, and I've been absolutely blown away that the child has retained that after that parent has gone to that trouble. It's really good to see. As a modification on this as well, it doesn't necessarily have to be done just this way, and I'll give you some ideas at the end of other creative pursuits that you can do to do a similar task. But let's start first at the beginning. What we've done here in the clinic is we went through and we just got some cardboard, we laminated them so they last a little longer. These children often are needing their tools and resources to be built for them for home, so they've got their own kit. So it's really important as the parent to be mindful of that by developing and building your own resources that can go around with the child then for each support helper and each teacher that's supporting them, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a trained teacher, that could be a teenage peer helper, or you can actually then develop your own stuff, and then you've got the equipment from then on, and then the child's familiar with that equipment. So we do this here. We've got some just some cardboard cutouts, and what I've done is I've gone and taken a picture of the character and I've glued this on, and that is giving them a guide as to how that letter pattern is actually made. And then we've gone and we've penciled on how we actually create that letter. Now the child can do this, but I suggest that you do it so that you're getting a really great grid to actually put these letters on. We could do a pencil. Another benefit that I use sometimes is doing a highlighter pen, and you can actually highlight over it as well, because we're going to be gluing something over the top. Okay, so after you've done that, and we've created quite a few cards here. We've got owl and A. Okay, and then what we do, this is the fun bit, and this is where do take the time to immerse into these activities and to take your child into it and to make it fun, make it enjoyable, make them be part of the journey to find the tools and equipment that you're going to be using to develop these cards. So we had a bit of fun doing this, and I can't take credit for all of this. Courtney's been working on these as well over a series of weeks, and so are the therapists. But we looked at the character and we thought, well, let's sort of check out what we've got in our art and craft kit in the Mad Hatter's art and craft room, and let's see if we can match it visually to the character. So what we did is here we've got Yeehaw Yowie, and he's standing in his letter Y with his arms up in the air, and he's also got a stethoscope around his neck on your card. You'll notice he's got a stethoscope which is also in the shape of the letter Y. So I certainly wouldn't not draw, I wouldn't forget to mention that to the child so that they've got that extra bit of information burned into their brain. You'll be surprised what they remember, so don't ever leave it out, some minor little facts like that. And what we've done is we found some bright stars, and we've made them also the colour of the rainbow, because this is what his fur is like. It's all fluffy and in different colours as the colour of the rainbow. And whilst you're doing this task and you're gluing these on, we actually used a heat gun because we wanted it to be permanent. So there may be some aspects you might have to take over. But what I was about to say is, as we were undertaking the task, we take a lot of effort to also use lots of language stimulation at the same time. So this could be, say, for example, we could be talking about the colours, we could be talking about the fluffy fur, we could talk about the rainbow, and there's a sequence of colours. So there's a cognitive task of actually maybe copying a sequence of colours that you can be doing. So these are really great activities for children who do have some cognitive problems, and that might be a global developmental delay that has cognitive or thinking problems, language problems, fine motor problems, visual processing problems, because what you're actually doing is you're skinning the cat at the same time and getting lots and lots of different, lots of techniques at once. You're actually integrating therapy at the same time, because if you were to just piece out all those activities, it's just going to take forever to achieve all those goals, amongst all the other things you're supporting them with their daily needs. So sometimes it's really great to find tasks that actually enable you to do more than one activity at once, and here's one that is a good place to start. So we've got Winona Wind, just some examples of what we've done. Here's Winona Wind, and we found some nice fluffy balls, and that way they can really come back and feel these textures. These are awesome for ASD children because they are just so sensory, and they just love using their senses, and because they actually do experience the world very, very differently to what we experience. So it enables them to actually enjoy these, and they can then shut their eyes, for example, and feel the direction of these letters, and that can help you to load in the actual direction that you'd be writing these letters in a visual motor and visual spatial sequence or order, so they can actually learn how to eventually create these with an instrument, a pen. Here we've got Fabian flower spray. We've used a nail file here, so it's got some really great rough textures. And then we thought we'd use the concept of the flower, and here's the leaves here with some pipe cleaner. We could have done, so for example, a petal or the head of the flower falling off here to indicate that this is a flower that needs some of Fabian flower spray's attention and some watering, because that can then cue the child to the direction of the hook and then the petals that as this flower is drooping, okay, and then they will remember that as the letter F. With some of the characters and the graphemes, I tend to have some stories to assist children to retain the shape of the letter. Another one's the H, for example. So we've got Hydra Hound, and he's our puppy dog. So we've found some really nice textures here with fluffy fur. We've chosen the colour that's similar to Hydro, but I also remind them that Hydro's got his tail up, so then they can tell the difference between, say, the letter N and the letter H. Okay, so there's another example there. One of the ones I like to use is Gilly Cane Toad, because he's the G, and I will cue the children that I'll go through a bit of story and say, what does a cane toad start as, or what does a frog start as? And I'll say, oh, it's a tadpole, and a tadpole's got a head and then it's got a tail. Okay, and that can cue them then into doing the letter G. I do tend to fuss and spend quite a bit of time making sure the direction and the programming order of how they write their letters is very accurate, because those patterns also go very deep into the brain and are absolutely hideous as far as I'm concerned, to correct years down the track if they're not put in correctly. For me, I see them just like articulation errors. If it's not corrected early, then it gets deeper and deeper into the into those layers of complexity of then, so for example, the articulation of like a t for a k then goes into all those words, and those words go into sentences, and sentences go into the construction of a thought, and then it becomes harder to sort of unravel that spaghetti and all that processing the longer that pattern's been going on. Well, the same goes for writing a letter. If it's say for example, the A is written incorrectly, or the O's starting at the bottom, whatever that is, okay, then that links to the rest of the words as they're writing those words and getting more automated in creating those words, and they link into sentence files, and then it gets harder and harder to correct. So I tend to be pretty, I'm pretty tough on that with kids, and I'll make them pull away out of the activity, and they might write an A 5 times, and then we take our A then into a G, and then into a D, and then into a Q, and into a G, and into an O, because it's actually the same letter. So sometimes I will actually spend quite a bit of time just adjusting and correcting the formation of these letters. Here we've got a CH. Well, we chose paper clips because he's kind of metallic, chippy chew tray, and here's the paper clips. And I just love the way that it's tactile, because these kids can shut their eyes, and you can say, oh, can you feel it? And let's see which one it is. You might put it, say for example, inside a pillow sack or inside a box that they can't see, and get them to actually feel it with their fingers, and then to see if they can visualize the direction that they're feeling, and that can help them to load in what that is as well. So what we're doing is creating some really, really deep sensory and motor files to retain this information. Okay, so there's some examples. Now here's my cane toad, very cute. There's a G with little eyes, a little tadpole. Okay, we've got Eye of the Mind, here's a nice one. here with our eye, purple, with our eye at the top. Okay, so lots and lots and lots of different ideas here. Here's our J with all these bright colours, and there's all these hands linked together with our J and a dot at the top. Okay, the world's your oyster really, and don't forget to be creative, because at the end of the day, it's not so much the details as being, you know, should I use this, should I use that, it's whether it sticks as a memory. That's the important thing, I think, is to really think about how can I make this deep, how can I make it stick, how can I make it so that when the child wakes up tomorrow that the memory is still there, and the time that we spent together in therapy wasn't wasted. Okay, so there's some really cool ideas to add to being able to help a child with their grapheme and or their ability to remember the visual structure of letters and how to be able to form them for their writing. Hope that's of use to you. This is specifically for those children who are quite slow and stubborn with their ability in retaining that information and moving forward. I hope that was of use to you. See you next video. Bye.
It's what you do with your teeth, it's where you put your tongue. It's the shape of your lips, let's make it